Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of our latest season of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. I'm not sure which season this is. Today, we are talking about language curriculums for speech language therapy. I'm your host, Carrie Clark. I'm the owner of the Speech and Language Kids company, and we have created a series of curriculums just for language that you can use in your speech language therapy sessions or as a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, an educator, any of those roles. And so today we're going to be talking about our language curriculums. We have several of them, and how they provide a structured plan, a structured pathway for teaching language skills to children. Now, this is episode 2 of this current run of the Speech and Language Kids podcast. So I just released one that was speech sounds. Now we're on to language. I'm going to do one episode on each of our different areas of communication that we cover. I'm going to go through what's included in those curriculums, who it's great for, what skills are covered, and then from there, you can hop into our SLK curriculum platform. You can access all of the therapy materials, all of the training videos, everything's included in that. You even get access to our core language program, which is a 16-week oral language intervention, all laid out for you. That we'll talk about that here in a little bit. And you get our AI-powered material generators. So you can generate lists of words, you can generate questions, WH questions, you can create images, all of these different practice materials that are tailored exactly to the skills you need to work on and the interests of your clients. So all of that is included in our curriculum platform, but today we're going to focus on the language curriculums. So we're going to jump into that. If you would like to follow along, you can go to speechandlanguagekids.com. In our menu bar that's in the middle of the screen, you'll see there's a thing that says Our Curriculums. Hover over that, drop down to Language, and you'll see exactly what I'm seeing on my screen. Okay. So our language curriculums, these are comprehensive plans for boosting language skills. And when I say language, I'm differentiating that from speech, because for me, speech is the actual sounds they're producing. Language is all of the words, the sentences, the comprehension, all of those other pieces that go into being able to communicate. So we're going to come down here and we're going to talk about who it's for in terms of the children and teenagers that you're working with, as well as who you are in your role. So in terms of our children and our teens, the children and teens who would be appropriate for working on our language curriculums would have any number of these challenges, okay? So we've got trouble following directions, struggling to ask or answer questions, those who have trouble retelling past events in a way that makes sense. They might start in the middle or not provide enough information, or maybe the events are all out of order, so it's hard to track. Also, those who have syntax or grammar issues, those who struggle with figurative language when we're using sarcasm or idioms, any of those kinds of things. We also include those with reading and writing challenges, because most of the time, if a child is struggling with literacy, it's because they're also struggling with some of those underlying language concepts in their spoken speech. And so if we can help them with language skills in their spoken speech and how they're understanding spoken speech, that will translate to helping them when it comes to reading and writing language, okay? And then finally, those who use vague or imprecise words or struggle with vocabulary, don't know what things are called, those are all different areas of language. So if you are working with a child or a teen who has any of those struggles, these curriculums will be great for you. And speaking of you, who is appropriate for this from our adult side? So what we're looking at here is that this program has all of our materials, all of our no prep therapy kits. It's all laid out into these structured pathways. And that makes it perfect for a variety of people to use to help our children and teens. So these are great for our speech language pathologists, our SLPs, our speech language therapists, whatever you're called in your area, including established SLPs, but also new ones, our CFYs as well. These are also great for our speech language therapy assistants and SLPAs who are working with students under the direction of a speech language pathologist. they're also great for parents and caregivers, as well as teachers and educators. And so what you will find when you go inside our curriculum platform is that I have separate training modules for all of those different people that I just listed. Because what I want, my dream, is to have all of us working from the same shared toolbox, to have the same resources, the same approaches, to be speaking the same language so that we can help those children and those teenagers make faster progress in their communication skills. How awesome would it be if we all had the same tools, right? So these tools are structured in such a way that they can be used by everyone on the team. And then the training modules that I've provided inside the curriculum platform are designated for those different roles to help you get the most out of it for your situation, okay? So that's who it's for, that's who can use it, but let's look at what the specific curriculums are for the area of language. So we have broken this out into 7 different curriculums. Probably could have done a lot more, probably could have consolidated a few, but I felt like this was the best way to really dive into what language skills a child or a teen is struggling with and being able to help them with one area at a time. And that really is how I recommend you do it, is to focus on one area at a time. And I will give you the exception here is we have like a cycles approach to language. So we're going to talk about that at the end. And that's where you do kind of rotate through and hit one and then the next and then the next, and then you cycle back around. But if you are working with a child who is really struggling, focusing on one area can be huge because it allows them to make faster progress in that one skill and really get that one up and running before we focus on more. Okay, so here are our curriculums. I'll give you a quick overview of each one, and then we'll dive into what's included in each of those curriculums. Okay, so the first one is following directions. So this is for our children who either struggle to follow just simple basic one-step directions, all the way up through those who are struggling to follow multi-step directions to complete a project for school. So any of that all falls into that curriculum. And as you will see in a minute, we've broken our curriculums down into levels so that you're not trying to use the same teaching materials for a 3-year-old as you would for a 15-year-old. So keep that in mind. All right, the next one is asking and answering questions. Can they answer WH questions? Can they ask questions appropriately? Can they answer questions in their classwork? Can they answer questions throughout the day? The next one is sequencing and retelling. These are for those friends who are struggling to be able to tell you what happened in a way that makes sense, or to retell a story, story recall, any of those sequencing things, putting events in the right order, all of that goes together into a sequencing and retelling curriculum. And then we have one for grammar and syntax. That one's a bit of a beast because there are so many different grammar and syntax skills that children need as they age. So we'll see all of those different skills are kind of packed in there, but it's got a choose your own adventure kind of vibe to it. So you can kind of pick which ones they need. We also have a curriculum for abstract language. So this is going to be idioms, expressions like it's raining cats and dogs. We're talking about sarcasm. We're talking about inferencing. All of those things go into this idea of abstract language where we're not exactly explicitly saying what we mean all the time. And how do we understand and use that? We also have a curriculum for vocabulary, and I love this one because I get a lot of questions about how do we work on vocab, because you can't possibly teach a child every word they ever need to know, right? But at some stages, you do need to explicitly teach vocab words. So how do we do that in a structured way? Well, we've laid it all out for you, so we've got that. And then our final curriculum is a literacy curriculum, and this is the language foundations of literacy, okay? So when we look at speech-language pathology and our profession and our role in literacy, I like to look at it as what do we bring to the team that no one else is providing in depth, right? So let's assume that this is a child who has a full team of professionals working with them. The classroom teacher is providing general education curriculum, as is their job, right? They might have a special education teacher or a literacy specialist who's helping with the decoding and the spelling and all of those literacy pieces, capital letters, periods, all of that, right? So I don't tend to focus on that with my speech language time because I know somebody else is hitting that. The piece that we do best, that nobody else on the team specializes in, is the underlying language and phonological components of literacy. And so that's what this curriculum is about. This is the language foundations for literacy, all those skills that if they know how to do those, it makes literacy easier. So that's what that one is. Okay, so then the other one that I kind of alluded to, but I didn't include in this list, is our core language program, and it is a cycles approach to language therapy. So if you have a child who is maybe struggling in all of these areas, or maybe just a little bit delayed in language, but not so far delayed that they need really in-depth therapy, then we can use this 16-week program where we teach one language skill each week and we cycle through so that over the course of 16 weeks, we directly teach every language skill they need for that grade level. And so 16 weeks is about half of a school year. And so in one school year, you could catch them up to grade levels, which is really nice for those kids who are struggling. Okay? So that one's included in there as well. I'm not going to go into huge depth on that on this podcast. We have talked about that program in depth on other podcasts. But just so you know, that core language program, which we used to sell for $450, is now included free inside your subscription to the curriculum. So that's now part of the program. You get all of that in addition to all of our curriculums. So that's a really good deal as well. So you can find that at speechandlanguagekids.com. Just click Get the Curriculum in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, and you'll find that there. Okay? All right. So I'm going to go through each of these curriculums. Let's see, what time are we at? Yeah, we got some time. I'm going to go through each of these curriculums and just kind of tell you what the different levels are, because the way our curriculums work is that each curriculum is broken down into 3 levels: beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And so you're going to find different skills in each of those levels. And this is not intended for you to teach beginner level, then teach intermediate level, then teach advanced level, and then you did it. This is more like choose your own adventure starting place, right? Where are they in terms of this spectrum? And then once you get through a level, yes, you could go up to the next level, but if that's not what they're ready for, then you can bounce to a different skill, a different curriculum, work on that for a while, and come back maybe when they're a little older. So hopefully it'll make sense as we start to go through some of these. So let's start with the following directions curriculum. So children and teens who would benefit from this one may be struggling to follow one-step directions. They may be struggling to follow multi-step directions, and they may be easily distracted when following directions. Some of our friends with ADHD would fall into that category. And so we've broken this one down into 3 levels. The beginner level is our basic directions. These are typically acquired between 1 and 4 years of age, but just so you know, our age ranges are just kind of a general guide to, okay, this is typically when we see this emerge, but you could definitely be working on these skills later than that as well. So our beginner level includes following one-step directions, both routine and novel, and then following 2-step directions, routine and novel, and following directions with basic spatial concepts. So all that's included in the beginner level of that curriculum. Then we go to the intermediate level. This is our expanded directions, ages 4 through 7 years. So this is following 3-step directions, novel and routine, and then following directions with the temporal words before and after. So before you clap your hands, touch your nose. That gets real tricky for some of our kids with language delays. And then our advanced level is our functional directions. So this is moving up to our 5 to 8-year-old and beyond, meaning this is going to continue throughout their school age years. But this is following classroom and academic instructions and managing larger functional directions, such as completing projects for school. Okay, so that's that one. The next curriculum is our asking and answering questions curriculum. So this is for our children and teens who are struggling with basic WH questions like who, what, where, when, why. Our children who have trouble asking questions in a way that makes sense. Maybe they're switching their word order. Or children who are struggling to answer questions about something they just heard, such as a story being told, information provided, something that just happened. So our beginner level here, we start off with just yes, no, And individual WH questions, this is between 2 and 6 years is when we see children emerge with these skills. And that is just, we're going to teach one question word at a time. We're going to teach you what questions. And once you've got what questions, we're going to teach you who questions. And we have therapy materials and kits and training videos for all of that. Then we go to the intermediate level. This is asking and answering mixed questions in conversations. So this is now, we're not just doing one question word at a time, we're mixing them together. We're looking at ages 4 to 7 years and beyond. So this is asking questions with correct syntax, answering mixed questions, and then being able to answer questions about past events or stories. And then our advanced level, this is our 5 to 10-year-old and beyond. This is using questions in classwork and for daily activities. So they're going to be asking and answering questions in academic work, asking and answering questions for self-advocacy, meaning being able to speak up for what they need, and asking and answering questions in conversations with others. Okay, moving on. Now we're at sequencing and retelling. So this is for our friends who are struggling to retell a past event or a story. Maybe the events are out of order when they're trying to retell us something, or maybe they start in the middle and don't provide enough background information. I have lots of children that I've worked with that do that, including my own. And so this is a program to help them understand how to sequence the events and retell it in a logical way. So we're going to start with our beginner level is sequencing and retelling common tasks. And this is our 4 to 6-year-olds. This is just saying, okay, here's a common activity, a thing you do every day, brush your teeth, putting on your shoes, getting dressed, something simple that they're familiar with. How do we sequence those steps together? And then how do we describe the steps to that activity? That's the first level. Intermediate level then, now we're moving up to retelling past events. So we'll start by just answering questions about those past events so we can really understand what happened. And then we work on actually sequencing and retelling the parts to that event. Our advanced level then, this is 5 to 8 years and beyond. We're using our sequencing and retelling in our classwork. So we're understanding, retelling, and producing narratives. We're using those temporal concepts like before, during, and after. So we're just taking that sequencing and using it in those functional situations. Okay? All right, next is grammar and syntax. This is the one that I told you was kind of a beast. So if a child has syntax or grammar errors in their conversational speech, they are maybe either using the wrong grammatical markers, so maybe they say her is running instead of she is running, or they might actually leave them out. So their speech might sound kind of telegraphic, if you can imagine an old telegraph where there's missing words and it sounds kind of choppy. They may be using sentences or utterances that are shorter or less complex than other children their age. So we have a lot of skills listed in these levels. I'm not going to list them all out. But we start with our beginner level of just teaching those foundational grammar skills. So these are specific grammar things like articles, pronouns, plurals, past tense. We teach those one at a time very explicitly. Once we get to our intermediate level, then we're looking at how do we help them expand their sentence complexity, things like compound sentences, complex sentences, matching verb tense, all of those things. And then when we get to the advanced level, this is our 6 to 13-year-olds. So we're really looking at those ELA skills, the English Language Arts skills that they are expected to have in middle school and beyond, where they are able to correct their sentence fragments and run-ons. They're able to expand and combine and reduce sentences. They're using different clauses, different voices, all of that stuff, okay? So this one, we have hit quite a few of these in terms of which therapy materials we have. A lot of these are actually inside the core language program though. So if you're inside our curriculum platform and you're looking for some of these skills, they're inside the core language program, especially the 4th and 5th grade levels include a lot of those higher level grammar skills as well. All right, next up is our abstract language curriculum. So this is for our children and teens who are struggling with figurative language, whether it's idioms, sarcasm, similes, metaphors, any of that, and making inferences, meaning can you get some information that wasn't explicitly stated. So we start with our beginner level at 5 years of age is when we can first start to understand literal versus non-literal language. And this is just simply if I say, take your seat, do I actually mean to take it somewhere, or was that a non-literal meaning? Or if I say throw it away, did I actually mean throw it across the room, or did I mean go walk it nicely to the trash can and put it in? So literal versus non-literal. And then our intermediate intermediate level, we're going to be talking about figurative language. So now we're looking at our 6 to 10 year age range. And this is when we're going to introduce idioms and figures of speech, like it's raining cats and dogs. And we're going to look at similes and metaphors when we're comparing things. And then we're going to look at our advanced level. This is our 7 to 12-year-olds and beyond. A lot of our teenagers are working on these skills as well. And this is inferencing and social nuance. So we'll work on inferencing both from text, but also in social inferencing, understanding what's going on in a social scenario without somebody explicitly telling you that, and then understanding sarcasm and irony. This could be very difficult for our children with abstract language problems as well. All right, next up is vocabulary. So vocab, our friends that are working on vocab, they're maybe using some vague or imprecise words or language. They may have trouble following directions that contain unfamiliar words or concepts, and they may just struggle to know what things are called or don't understand words that they read or hear. So for vocab, this one is tricky because, like I said earlier, you can't possibly teach every word that a child will ever need to know. There's too many words. But at the beginning levels, you do need to explicitly teach specific words. So our beginner level starts by building a core vocabulary. This is our ages 1 to 2.5 years in typically developing children, but often we need to work on building that core vocab with older children as well who don't have it. So this is explicitly teaching them their first 50 words, and that is, yes, one word at a time, because that's what we need is to build a core vocab. And then teaching them how to combine those two words together, start putting two words together, which, by the way, means they have to have more than just 50 nouns, because you can't put nouns together to make sentences. We need some verbs, we need some adjectives, we need some possessives. And then expanding their vocabulary of the nouns that they do know and other word types. Okay, so that's our beginner level. We are explicitly teaching them specific words that they need to know. Then we go to our intermediate level. This is between ages 2 and 6 when these types of words start to emerge. And now we're looking more at groups of words and categories of words. So we're increasing their word knowledge and usage. The specific word types that I have listed in this curriculum, we're teaching them spatial concepts. We're teaching them adjectives, comparing and contrasting, temporal concepts, quantitative concepts. So we're expanding by giving them these groups of words. Instead of explicitly teaching them every single spatial concept they'll ever need to know, we teach those words as a class. So now we're expanding their vocabulary more rapidly. Once we get to the advanced level, this is ages 5 to 12 years, but again, our teenagers who are on language therapy plans are still working on these skills, guys. That's just kind of the typical age range. But these once we get to that advanced level, we're looking at academic vocabulary and we're looking at independent word learning. How do you handle when you come across an unknown word? I can't teach you every one of those words, but I can teach you strategies for how to learn new words that will help you throughout the rest of your life. So now we're not teaching specific words, we're teaching strategies. So the strategies listed in this section are understanding and using multiple meaning words, so understanding that words can mean multiple things. We're looking at antonyms and synonyms and the relationships between words. We're looking at how to use affixes and roots to decode an unknown word. So that's our prefixes, our suffixes, and root words. Oh, okay, well, I know that means again. So retype probably means I need to type it again. So that's a word attack strategy. And then other word attack strategies and word learning strategies as appropriate. So that's our vocab one. Okay. Last one we have for today is our language foundations for literacy. Okay, so these are students who are struggling with phonological awareness skills like rhyming, alliteration, segmentation, blending. And I'm going to specify here, sometimes we have teenagers who need to go back and remind them about those phonological awareness skills because for whatever reason it was missed and they did not have a strong foundation in that. And if we can go back and teach those phonological aspects of speech, that's going to help them with sounding words out. We can also look at this for children who are struggling to understand text, such as identifying story elements, main idea and details, those who are struggling to produce their own writings, or just in general not meeting those literacy expectations in their academic work or school. So, beginner level, we're looking at pre-literacy foundations. We want to make sure they've got phonological awareness, print awareness, and basic story structure. Then once we get to intermediate level, we're looking at understanding and using discourse structures. So this is narratives, informational texts, opinions, all of those different types of writings also translate to different types of conversational skills as well. So if we can help them learn how to understand, retell, and produce a story in spoken language, then when they are expected to do that in their academic or written language, they have the skills already, and then it's just translating that to the written modality. Same with information. If we can teach them what main idea and detail are in spoken speech in language, then they can translate that to written. Okay, so that's what the middle level is. And then the advanced level is looking at those critical thinking skills for reading and writing. So now we're looking at inferencing, making predictions, abstract language, identifying an author's purpose or perspective, synthesizing information, and then organizing and expressing their ideas in writing. And then, like I said, we do have that one last one that was the core language program. That is the kind of the cyclical approach of, today we're working on this grammar skill, tomorrow we're working on that vocab skill, then we're going to work on retelling stories, and we're going to hit all of them explicitly, but in a program that cycles back through and brings those skills up again. All right. Whew, it's a lot, I know. But the nice thing about our curriculum, if you subscribe to the curriculum, you get access to all of the curriculums, the speech, the language, the functional communication, social, all those things. They're all included. And we have tools to help you figure out which curriculum is best for a student. And then it's just following the path. Everything is laid out, and we've given you the guides to get to where you need to start, and then you just print and go, or just pull it up on your screen and go, either one. So hopefully that is helpful for you to see how that language curriculum works. If you have any questions, of course, email me, Carrie@speechandlanguagekids.com. You can find more on our website at speechandlanguagekids.com, or you can just jump right in. There's a free 7-day trial on our curriculum, so you can grab that, and then it's just $50 a month or $500 a year after that to access everything, including our courses, including our discussion boards, including our AI material generators. All that's included. So let me know what questions you have, and hopefully that was helpful. Our next one, let's see, what's next? We're going to do functional communication next. So our next episode, we will go over our different curriculums for that, and we're just going to keep powering through. So hopefully you guys are getting some benefit out of this, and you can let us know what you need. All right, bye.